Have you ever found yourself eating less and less, perhaps moving more and more? You're trying things that once worked and now it's just no longer working. Or maybe you look at carbs and you just feel like you're gaining weight. This video is for you. Hi, I'm Crystal from Brave Bold You. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about how to heal your metabolism in midlife without having to diet harder. Because it's 2026. Ain't nobody got time for that. No, you have not permanently damaged your metabolism. However, you may be in a metabolic adaptation. What metabolic adaptation is it's a way for your body to protect itself from severe restriction and dieting. So this video, I really want to talk to the women who have bought into the conditioning, either consciously or subconsciously, to be smaller at all costs. This is for the women who have watched their mother's diet, their grandmother's diet, their aunts, their friend, and you yourself repeated in the steps that were modeled to you. Again, this is not to blame and shame anybody, but when we have more information, I have a big belief when knowledge is power. So when we know something different, we can apply a different strategy. And I really want to speak to those women because I found myself there as well. There was a time that I fell into the bodybuilding world, and although I loved my experiences, I did develop very disordered eating patterns that led to binging and just really abusing my body by overworking it all the time, measuring calories in, calories out. All of the things, became really obsessed with all of the things. That's why I just categorized it as disordered eating patterns that I had to heal. My body actually ended up coming into a metabolic adaptation, which simply means that your body ends up really conserving energy, meaning you have to eat less and less in order just to maintain what you're at, the weight you're at. And that's not a sustainable approach to life. So I ended up rebounding. Metabolic adaptation tends to include that. You will rebound, meaning you will gain weight at a rapid rate. And that will naturally impact your sense of self-worth, your self-esteem, even your self-concept, like who do you believe yourself to be? And so especially if you've bought into the conditioning that you are not worth anything unless you're smaller. And so my message is really, you're so much more than this body. Now, I'm going to speak a lot to the women in midlife. However, this is applicable to anybody, but what I'm going to say right here is relevant to women in midlife because naturally at midlife, our bodies are already undergoing so much chaos and physiological, biological changes due to the decline in estrogen. When there is such a drop in our estrogen, this is naturally going to affect how we become more sensitive to insulin. Our insulin sensitivities are increased. There is a dramatic disruptance in our sleep. This is due to the decline in progesterone. And just, I feel like everyday life stresses seem to feel more challenging. So we've been spinning all the different plates. You know, we have aging parents, we're raising kids or not, our careers, whatever you want to categorize as stress. All of a sudden you may find yourself, as I found myself, where all these spinning plates just felt like harder. And I was having just a harder time overall managing everything. And so that as well, I mean, estrogen is really neuroprotective to the brain. And so stress, everything just feels more amplified at this phase of our life. So let's get into it. How do we heal our metabolism in a way that feels really good to us overall? All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this training. But first of all, I'm going to hold your hand as I say this, and I'm going to say it with love. It is definitely not another diet that will fix your metabolism. Take a deep breath and let that land. I know that's not what I wanted to hear as well when I found myself stuck years ago, struggling. It is not what I wanted to hear, but it's what my body needed. And so I'm going to share with you 4 pillars that are going to be really protective and help your body come back to homeostasis, which is a point of feeling more safe, so that all the body functions and the overall system can do what it's meant to do. So pillar number 1 is we need to build some muscle, baby. Now, I want to get into this because I think this is so important, especially for women who are in midlife. You probably grew up with the same conditionings that I as well bought into, where if we work out by resistance training, we're going to somehow turn into men. We're going to be jacked men. I want to tell you that unless you are eating well above maintenance, so you're eating at a surplus of calories, we're talking like 4,000 calories a day or more. We're talking this excess amount of food and taking these unnatural substances to enhance more of the testosterone in your body. It won't happen. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, man, you won the lottery. It's not going to happen. Okay. So we need to make friends with muscle. We need to make friends with the resistance training, because muscle is literally the most metabolic expensive thing you have on your body, especially at this game of this phase of life where we are losing a rapid decline of on average 1% a year. Now, 1% doesn't seem like a lot. However, over the course of your years, it will go fast, okay? And so, why does this matter? This matters because we want to have the strength to get around and do our everyday life. And it especially matters for that 80-year-old version of you who's going to want to be able to get up from off of her chair, okay? You need muscle, you need strength to be able to do that. Otherwise, you won't be able to stand. You won't be able to do a lot of your everyday functions. So we use muscles all the time, okay? So how do we build muscles? Well, we need to resistance train. Now, let's not overcomplicate this. Resistance training, I would say aim for 2 to 4 sessions a week. If you're somebody who's new and never stepped foot in a gym at all, start with 1 session a week, right? Hire a trainer. Make it easy for yourself. Like, I'm really big on trying to make things easier for yourself. Remove all of the blocks, because when we have all these mental blocks, it's not going to happen. So hire the coach, find the trainer, grab a magazine. I'm sure that magazines still offer things. I mean, but I have a bunch of videos, like all of the things, right? There are ways to find out how to do this. Now, second thing that I'm going to say about building muscle is, if you've never stepped foot in a gym, I know the intimidation that comes with that. I want to tell you, nobody is paying attention. I know that sounds really egotistical, but it's true. I remember, I'll never forget the first time that I ever stepped foot in a gym. And I make it a point when I notice new people to go and say hi and introduce myself, because I know what it felt like walking in a gym feeling so intimidated and feeling like I didn't belong there, only to come to realize that nobody even knew I was there. Nobody cared. And so now I have way more fun with that, and I get to try all different kinds of exercises. And I don't care what I look like, because nobody else sees me doing it anyways. They're usually just checking out their pipes and their triceps, and they're just like checking themselves out. So nobody's paying attention. Now, I'm going to say aim for 2 to 4 sessions a week. It's really important that you work on resistance training. The way that I like to do it is called progressive overload. So let's not complicate this. Progressive overload simply means lifting heavier than you think you can. Now, naturally, if you're somebody who doesn't lift weights, you're not going to grab a barbell that's already 45 pounds and then jack 250s on it, or 245s. Like, that's not going to work. What you want to do is go slow. Okay, we're going to build it up. So I'm really big on having warm-ups, doing flexibility and mobility drills, and then you build it up slowly over time. But progressive overload simply means that what you lift today, when you show up next time to do this session, you're going to try to increase slightly, right? Form over ego always. So make sure you're always having proper form. And how I use progressive overload is, let's say I'm working reps, which are repetitions for the certain working set. You want to try to see, like if you're lifting the weights and the reps say to go for 10 to 12 repetitions, but you feel like 12 was easy. Well, then I would increase my repetitions, and then the next working set, I would increase the weight so that my repetitions now feel more challenging, right? So progressive overload is like that. And I can do another video on that if you'd like. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to break this down, or how, if you'd like me to show you demonstrations of certain workouts that I love doing. I will gladly share that for you. Another thing that muscle does is it's going to improve your insulin sensitivity. So muscle is metabolic. It is what is going to help you burn more calories at rest. And so just naturally, your body's going to want to burn more calories. Muscle feels abundant in the body system. And so what that does is it really makes your body believe, when you have more muscle, your body believes that it is safer. So the more muscle you have, naturally, the more calories you're going to burn at rest. Pillar number 2, we're going to aim to fuel our bodies. Food, to me, the way I see food right now is data for your cells. And so protein is a major player in this. So in order to have the muscle, we need to feed the muscle. So we need the protein. Now, let me give you some examples of protein and what I recommend. I highly recommend that you take protein with every meal. So if you're eating 4 to 5 times a day, if you're eating 3 times a day, whatever that is, you're going to aim to get the protein in at every meal. Now, if you use your palm, this would be a serving on average of protein. Now, protein, this even works for people who do not consume meat. Protein could be things like Greek yogurt, it could be legumes, it could be soy. What I will say that is not a protein that people tend to categorize as a protein would be peanut butter. And peanut butter, I hate to break it to you, is actually a fat. Fat is very good for our body, especially women in midlife. Our brain needs fat, our hormones need fat. And so it's not a bad macronutrient to have, but don't eat protein. Don't eat peanut butter thinking that you're actually getting protein. You're getting some protein, but you're getting mostly fat. Protein also helps stabilize your blood sugar, which creates metabolic safety in the body. When your blood sugar levels are at a normal rate, your body will naturally feel safer. Pillar number 3 is nervous system care. Now, this is so much more important than we actually give it credit for. When we are dysregulated, nothing works, all right? And so due to the excess stress that we're already carrying, I've already spoke about that, like the chronic stress and just feeling like all the spinning plates are just not lining up. Doing our own nervous system care is going to be so restorative to bringing back that sense of calm, to letting the body like really decrease the cortisol. That actually when the cortisol spikes, like it's going to hold on to everything. But when we're able to come back down to being regulated, then we can release. And so again, our nervous system is not always going to be at a nice, linear state. It's really like, what's your bounce back theory? What's your resilience in life? And so I'm going to share some things that I really love to use in my own toolbox for doing nervous system care. Number 1 is walking. Not walking to do cardio, walking as a way to restore our nervous system. And so, especially when we walk in nature, chef's kiss. And so walking, there's so many studies on what it actually does to the mind, like to your brain. There's so many studies that show what the benefits that it has on your brain, but also on your body and your overall system. And I don't know anybody that's gone for a walk and doesn't feel better. So another tool that I like to use in my toolbox would be breath work. Now, breath work, there's so many different ways to do breath work. I myself, I like to co-host breath work sessions. it's really just tapping back into what your breathing pattern is. And I would just tell you, most people were just breathing from the top of our lungs. We're not actually breathing from the depth of our stomach and just bringing it up into the whole system. So I can do another video like that if you'd like, just let me know below. Prioritizing our sleep. This is going to be huge. I have a video all on what's your sleep hygiene routine and how to improve your sleep hygiene routine to get the best quality sleep. Everybody has their own sleep sweet spot. I function so well. Like, I feel like I can take on the world when I've had 9 hours of sleep. And I know that that's not always possible. And depending on where you find yourself in life, especially if you're in midlife, where our sleep is pretty much dysregulated. It's crappy sometimes. So prioritizing your sleep is going to be a great tool to implement in your nervous system care toolkit, because when we are exhausted, then we seem to be searching for the foods that are going to give us the quickest energy spikes, and they're also going to come with a crash. So when you have optimized your sleep, everything just feels sweeter. The next thing that I really try to, as much as humanly possible, stick to is having slower mornings. Now, you might hear me say that and be like, are you crazy? I'm telling you, even if you are able to practice, again, it's a practice of getting up a few minutes earlier versus getting up and feeling like you're already behind. I have found myself having the slowest mornings creates the best days for me. It just really helps me set the intention for the day and what I want to cause and create in my life. And so slower mornings is you're starting your day slow versus starting your day already feeling behind. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Another tool that I want to bring into the nervous system care toolbox would be finding the daily glimmers. What does this mean? It's a part of microdosing joy. I feel like in life we have, some of us may become jaded, we become stressed, we just find ourselves in ruts. And so microdosing joy to me is ultra important. And what I do is I look for the little glimmers, the daily glimmers. And so those are little moments of joy. It could be, smiling at a stranger. It could be somebody bought you a coffee. It could be the sun, it peeks out through a cloudy day. I purposefully am always looking for little daily glimmers, because it has been proven to actually rewire your mindset. And so here's one of my main ones that I love to do is I have little disco balls that I have hanging in my windows. And so when the sun hits it, even the moonlight actually, when it hits it, it will leave little sparkles, little glimmers of joy is what I call them. So microdosing joy is such an important part of nervous system care. Number 4, this one, some of you are going to need a little bit more practice. I know I did for myself. We need to practice so much patience and really get embodied with what our consistency is and having the integrity to the consistency. A lot of people, when we hear the word consistency, are going to superimpose the word perfection. And consistency does not mean perfection. Consistency does not mean you show up and it's going to be perfect and everything is going to be aligned. Consistency means some days you don't have more than 1% to give. And so you decide what's the 1% that I can show up in, and you show up in that way. Whereas other days you can give 50, other days you're going to give 100. And so it's really important to embody what patience and consistency mean during this process. Because it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a process. Your body is going to take the time it needs in order to feel safe and come back to homeostasis. And it's for sure not going to be found in another diet. So what I'm going to really recommend is, as you're in this process, it's please stick to turning on your own blinders. Like if you need to unfollow certain people, shiny object syndrome kills more dreams than anybody will ever understand. And not that healing your metabolism should be a dream, it should actually be a priority to feeling overall your utmost best, your overall wellness and emotional well-being, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. And so when we start looking and comparing, this is where the mind, the ego is going to get involved, and it's going to tell you this is stupid, just go back on that diet. And your body for sure does not need that, especially if you have overabused it and such. And I might say the word overabuse and you might be, but I just did a few diets. Especially in midlife, this is not the time to be messing with that stuff. I would simply say focus on hitting the gym, get that resistance training in, focus on your weights going up in the gym versus what your scale is telling you. So on that note with the scale, maybe you don't weigh yourself anymore because you may gain weight. And again, hand on your heart, you are more than this body, and this body has showed up for you every single season of your life, every single day of your life. And the goal, at least what I did throughout this healing journey, was to really envision that 80-year-old version of me. And that really healed something. You know, I built this relationship with what I believe is best for her in the now. And so cutting out calories again and slashing the diet and like just, it's not going to be a sustainable thing. So you're going to need to practice consistency. You're going to need to practice patience. You're going to need to stop weighing yourself. And if you absolutely want to weigh yourself, I would tell you to get a scale that gives you your biofeedback, you know, metrics. And so you can focus on muscle mass increasing, skeletal mass increasing, your hydration liquids increasing. Maybe it'll even show you what your protein levels are at. Maybe it'll even show you what your metabolic age is. And then you can have those numbers to focus on versus being obsessed with this one overall number that means nothing in and of itself, okay? Like nothing. Another thing that I'm going to recommend as you're practicing your patience and consistency is to not double down on cardio. Please do not do that. And so we want to heal and restore. So yes, cardio is good for your cardiovascular health, but this is not the time to be punishing yourself with cardio and doing like 2-a-day sessions. It's not the time to do that. What I would say is just slowly reverse everything that you've done. And so what I did when I was practicing this patience and consistency was I was slowly reverse dieting, meaning I was increasing my calories ever so slowly. I was decreasing my cardio. I was increasing like the weights, and how I showed up. So instead of having, 2-a-day cardio sessions, I brought it down to twice a week. I brought it down to once a week. I completely removed it, and now I just walk. And that has been so beneficial for my overall mental, emotional well-being. And so this is something to just consider. I'm offering you different tools. Obviously, you do what you feel is best for you, but you're more than this, okay? So optimal health. And the last thing I'll say is, please don't compare your midlife body to a past version of you from like your 20s or your 30s. This body is not broken. This body is not broken. It wasn't broken back then either, but we tend to go back to a point of reference in our life where we feel like maybe we felt better in our skin, in our overall life. Maybe there was other overarching themes that just gave us more confidence. And what I want you to know is that that exists already within you now. And so be gentle on you. I think it's so important that we have more compassion and grace and understanding, because we're always doing the best we can at any given moment. Because the truth of the matter is, midlife is not about shrinking anymore. It's about trying to build more strength, stepping into our prime time as we take up space into this next chapter, these next chapters of our life, right? We've already lived more than half of our life. And so we don't know when the time stops. And so why not make it live every day like it's the best day to come? If you are a midlife woman who wants strength over shrinking, health over hustle dieting culture, make sure you hit subscribe, because this is the channel for you. And if you hang around me long enough, I will actually have you remembering who it is you be. You have so much potential, untapped potential, and today is the youngest you'll ever be. And so why not go out and tap into that magic that you have to offer the world, which is actually not your body, but your mind and your voice and your spirit and your presence, because those are the things that matter. And at the end of your life, what I can tell you is you're not going to lay on your deathbed, if you get to a deathbed, you're not going to lay there and say, man, I wish I weighed less. Man, I wish I would have, not eaten those fries. Or man, I wish I would have done an extra session of cardio. That is not what you're going to say to yourself. You're going to say, how I wish I could go back. How I wish I can go back to those moments. And so, thanks for being here. I'm more than grateful to have you along for this journey. And don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification bell so you know when I drop new videos. Let me know in the comments below how this video landed for you and what else you want to chat on. Let's go. As always, be brave, be bold, be you.